You're listening to Emovira audiobooks. Every episode, a brand new fictional crime story set against the real, remote landscapes of the Australian Outback. The story is about Birdsville, Queensland, days after the biggest event of the year has packed up and gone home. A stockman is found dead in a dry creek bed, and one young constable refuses to accept the easy answer. This is Static on the Track. Birdsville sits at the end of the world, or close enough. Population under 100 most months of the year, swelling briefly for the races each September, when the whole of Outback Queensland seems to funnel down one red dirt track to drink and bet and forget how far from anywhere they really are. This is a story about what happens after the crowds go home. The morning after the races, Constable Priya Mehta had been posted to Birdsville for 11 months when the races wrapped up that year, and she'd learned that the week after was always the strangest, a ghost town hangover, swollen with rubbish, lost belongings, and occasionally worse. It was worse this time. A stockman named Wes Harrigan, who worked a station 60 kilometers out on the Diamantina, was found by a mail-run pilot doing a low pass over a dry creek bed 8 kilometers from town. He'd been dead at least 2 days. No obvious wounds, no vehicle nearby. Heart attack, maybe, said the local nurse, who doubled as the closest thing to a coroner until someone could fly in from Charleville. Man his age, out here, dehydration alone could do it. Priya wasn't convinced. Wes Harrigan had ridden these paddocks for 20 years. Men like that don't wander 8 kilometers from any track. On foot, without a reason. The station. She drove out to Harrigan's homestead the next day. A low, tin-roofed house with a 2-way radio crackling permanently in the corner. The property's only real connection to the outside world. The station owner, a weathered woman named Coral Denny, poured tea with hands that wouldn't quite settle. Wes was a good worker, quiet, kept to himself mostly, especially the last few months. Anything change? Money troubles? Arguments? Visitors? Coral hesitated exactly 1 beat too long. There were blokes coming round. Said they were buying scrap machinery. Wes handled that side of things. I don't get involved in that sort of business. What sort of business is that, Coral? The investigation widens. Priya requested records from Longreach and Mount Isa, the nearest larger stations with real police resources, and found something interesting. Over the previous 4 months, small aircraft with no consistent registration pattern had been logging unusual flight paths near several remote stations along the Birdsville track, always landing on private airstrips, always at night, always for less than 20 minutes. It didn't take much imagination to guess what didn't need 20 minutes of daylight to unload. The scrap machinery buyers, Coral mentioned, turned out to be a loose network, moving drugs, likely methamphetamine and cannabis, through remote station airstrips, using the vast, unmonitored distance of the Channel Country as cover. Stations desperate for extra income during drought years made convenient, quiet stopovers. Wes Harrigan, it seemed, had been the on-ground contact, and something had gone wrong. The radio log. The break came from the 2-way radio itself. Stations along the Diamantina shared an old-fashioned party line for emergencies, and Priya, working with a technician flown in from Mount Isa, discovered the radio retained a log of channel use. 2 nights before Wes died, there'd been an unusually long transmission on a private frequency. 19 minutes, unregistered. They managed to trace the frequency's other end to a rural property near Windora, owned by a man named Trent Osric, who ran a legitimate air charter business, and who, station gossip suggested, had grown very wealthy very quickly, for someone flying tourists to see the big red sand dune. Confrontation. Priya, backed by two detectives who'd finally made the long drive from Longreach, confronted Osric at his airstrip. Wes wanted out, Osric admitted eventually. Once the physical evidence, flight logs, a ledger hidden in a fuel drum, and a witness statement from a nervous young loader, had piled high enough that denial stopped being useful. He said he had a bad feeling, said the drought was making everyone reckless, more product coming through, more people watching the stations. He wanted to walk away clean. So you walked him out to that creek bed and left him there. I didn't touch him, Osric said, but he had. A struggle at the airstrip, a fall, a decision not to call for help. The medical examiner's delayed but thorough report from Brisbane eventually confirmed blunt trauma consistent with a fall and injuries inconsistent with an 8-kilometer walk taken willingly. Trent Osric was convicted of manslaughter and multiple drug trafficking offenses, the case becoming one of the first to expose how vulnerable the vast, radar-shadowed outback airspace could be to exploitation. Several station owners, including Coral Denny, cooperated with investigators in exchange for lesser charges, citing years of drought-driven desperation. Constable Priya Mehta requested to stay on in Birdsville another 2 years. She said the case taught her something about the outback that the training manuals never quite captured. Out here, the silence isn't empty. It's just listening, waiting for someone brave enough to break it. That's Static on the Track, brought to you by Emovira Audiobooks. If you're enjoying the series, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Next up, we travel to the Silver City itself, Broken Hill, New South Wales, for a story of old mine shafts and older secrets in the long paddock. Thanks for listening.